So hi guys, so today we'll be building this simple application that demonstrates how you can use internationalization in your React application. So this tutorial will be divided into 4 parts. So the first part is a brief introduction of what we are going to be building and why we are going to be doing so. The second part is setting things up ready, installing the required libraries. The third part is actually creating a translation hook because we'll be using a hook for that purpose. And then lastly, the fourth part is applying the translation hook into the UI section, all right? And then we close by saying what's next and what to expect. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions at the comment section below and I'll make sure to answer them. With that, let's get started. So we will need like only a few libraries, because always remember that if you can do it yourself, then don't use external libraries. Yeah. That's done. So the next thing is to remove this. We need to remove this welcome screen. So that's done. So we want to also be able to have now like our content, like for example in WhatsApp you see like there is a status bar at the top and then like there are those different views, so to speak. So right here all you need to do, we can just wrap everything in a view. Again, this is very light implementation, so always remember where you're importing this from. So for the view we need to import it from like React Native, okay? And then a view will need a child. So if we save, we see nothing, so you can't do this like maybe test. You can't do this because a view will need a child. You see, like test strings must be rendered within text, okay? So we have to wrap it inside a text, what is it, a text element, right? And the text is an equivalent, of maybe a span or a, what is it, or a paragraph, yeah, in the context of HTML. All right, so here maybe say, let's say like hello, okay? Then maybe we are welcoming ourselves, or like we have like maybe like the label is a dashboard, and then we say like a salutation right here, hello user, or welcome back. Let's use welcome back, and then let's use like an assumption like the user's name, maybe bits and bytes, bytes TV. But this is not always going to be the same, because a user will log in a different context and so forth. So what we want to do is we need to like maybe cut this out, and then we come here and then we have our states, and then cost username, and then we use state, okay? And then we use this one right here, okay? Okay, so we should be able to see welcome back, bits and bytes. Okay, so this is the bare minimum like of what we want to achieve. So all we need to do, like we will be using a very simple translation option, and I'll explain like how we are going to do that. But before we do that, let's actually style things a bit. Again, bear with me. So this is not the best way to style things. You're supposed to create a file and then you import that file and then you get to style your content. But for this specific session, okay, so the next thing we need to do is to now apply the translation. All right, okay, so far if you have any questions, just drop them down in the comment section below. Okay, all right, let's continue to the next part. Okay, so what I like doing when working with third-party libraries is have hooks for them, and this way it will be easier later on down the line. For example, if you want to switch, right now we are using I-89. If you want to switch to a different translation library later on and you have a hook in place, you just change all that logic in the hook. Okay, I hope that is clear. Okay, all right, so let's start creating our hook. So just to save time, I'll create the hook first and write all the code, then we can walk through it together. Okay, so now our translation hook is ready. So let me just explain what it does. So notice here we have our list of supported resources. So we can have English, Swahili, Arabic, and so forth. These resources are what you are going to now apply on our application. And it can be from any source. As we said, you can have them from Firebase, you can have them from your endpoints like maybe backend and so forth. But because this tutorial is short, we just need to add them right here, hard coded for now. Okay, all right. So the next part is the resources part. So resources, think of them as like your JSON object for the translation. Remember, we said that we'll be using dot notation. The dot notation is like A.B.C. So for example here, if we want to apply this dashboard to display it, okay, on the UI, we'll simply do home.title, okay, and so forth. So it's nested. That's why we have it like this. String here is the language code. As for any is for the whole object that you are going to be passing in right here. Okay, so notice one thing. Dashboard right here is lowercase. Everything here is lowercase. So I like having them as lowercase on the translation side of things, so that just I have them for the consistency purposes, all right? But you can decide how you want them, because whatever you have them appear here is how they will be displayed on the UI. Once you apply them, you'll get to see that, okay? So the next thing you see here, I added for Swahili and also Arabic. Notice one thing. For the Arabic, it's RTL, okay? And for the Swahili and English is LTR. So this is the best part about like using third-party libraries. They make it easy for you when it comes to translations, all right? Okay, so the next bit is this part right here. What is user? Like this one, we will see later on, like down the line, but I'll explain. We don't want to have bits and bytes for everyone. Like you may have your username, you may have your user there. So that's why in this case, we have to, let's call it maybe not interpolate, maybe like transform, all right? This is a variable that will be passing into the translation so that it can be displayed as needed. And it will actually be displayed also in RTL and so forth. All right. So the next part is the translation hook utility, the method. Remember, in React, every hook, okay, it should start with use. So here we have use translation hook utility. Then here we have a list of hooks that we can actually depend on. Okay, so the first hook, and in this case, we just need to depend on one hook, and that is a translation hook. So why have it like this? So tomorrow you may decide, wait, we want to use a different library for the translations. You just need to change this part right here. And then this other logic, it will remain as it is. And your application will be safe and sound, so to speak, from like future proofing. Okay. All right. So here we have use translation right here. We are simply using object destructuring, and we are picking this T is the actual value that we are picking from use translation, but then we are assigning it to the translate variable. This makes it easy to read. You can have it as anything right here. Okay. And then you just have it this as anything also here, and it will still work. But for readability, remember, always use variables that you and your teammates can actually understand. All right. So here we have it as translate. All right. So the next part is the effects. As you know, in React, effects, they are actually executed when they are like maybe component starts or when a hook starts and so forth. So here we need to take advantage of that flow. I'll explain this part first. So here we have initializing the default language. So what this does is that you may go with the option of picking the native language set by the device, all right? Or you may decide to have like your own fixed language. Maybe because you have the demographic of your users speaks this language, okay? So in this case, let's just have it as English. Then we have this method right here, the method change language. So this method, what it does is that it will simply accept the locale. And this locale here is simply a code. Yeah, it's ENSWAR and so forth. And we will see, as we have seen right here in the resources, it's this ENSWAR and so forth. All right. So here we simply pass it in, and then we call the internationalization library and we change the language. So this means that the object that will be active, that will be in play, is EN. When we transform it to SW or AR, the object that will be in play is SW1. Okay. Now that calls for the question, what happens if we have like something like this? We don't have a salutation property set for SW. That is where the fallback language comes into the picture. The translation from the fallback language is what will be used. Okay? All right. I hope that is clear. And then lastly, we have this part right here. This effect is important because it's where we're initializing our language resources. Okay, so here we see that we have supported locales for each. So we are looping through the supported locales, which is an array that we defined up here, this one. Okay, then we are taking advantage of object destructuring once again, and we pick the code, this code, yeah, from each and every supported locale. Then we are picking from the resources here, we are picking the value of the key. And the key is the local value, which is en. So once we get this, so this will be only this part right here. Okay, and then from that part is when the object notation works. A.B.C.D. Okay, as we said. All right. Then once we have this in play, we need to be safe. So we need to say if the code is not specified for one reason or the other, but it should be specified, we are going to use an empty object, so that this code cannot fail execution. Then if we are using an empty object, that means the language that you have put in play, it doesn't work. Okay, and if it doesn't work, then that means we are going to use our fallback language. All right, so you see it all connects. All right, then the other important part, and which is the last part, is this part. We are simply saying I18N add resource bundle. Okay, we are adding a resource bundle, not add resource. You see there is an option for add resource. No, you add a resource bundle. Then you provide the code. And this code is what you have picked from here. And it can be EN and so forth. We have mentioned that already. Then the namespace. You can decide which namespace your application will identify the translation object. And in our case, we are setting this as translation. And then we are providing the JSON object, which is our local resource. Then here we are simply saying, I want this to be deep, like deeply nested, and then after that we overwrite anything else. Okay, so you see here we have the language, we have the namespace, we have the resources and so forth. All right, and that's it. So lastly, we have this part right here. When we are returning, okay, we need to return some helper methods, and these methods are what will be exposed to other components and so forth that are going to consume our translation utility. So this translate will accept a few things. It will accept the key and then the options. So the key in this case is simply A.B.C.D. Object notation. That is okay. So what about options? You remember when we said we are going to have like users right here? So we can provide an object with a key. For example, we can have user with as a key, and then the value is the username, and that is what will be displayed. So it can be dynamic for different users. All right. So we simply call our translate method that we already defined up here, and that's it. So that closes this part of creating the translation utility. So the next section, we are going to see how we can apply this actually on our UI. So let's continue to the next part. Okay, so far so good. The translation utility is ready. Now it's time to start applying translations on our UI section. Okay, but before we do that, we need to configure the application so that it can know that, wait, I should be aware of the new utility as well as the third-party libraries that are being used. So for that reason, notice this line right here. It's i18n.config. So you need to introduce the configuration for the i18n into your application. So we are adding it in the app.tsx file. Add it at the topmost level of your application. Okay, so here when we open this file, we see that it has a few things. So I'll just walk through it because it's a constant, and we just import this i18n, we import international plural rules, then we import this library as well. So what this does is that it sets the whole flow ready, yeah, for your application, and you will not have things breaking as you continue. So we add i18n, we tell it to use this library. Okay, then we initialize. We set the resources as empty because you remember we are already initializing resources somewhere else, and that's in the utility. Okay, then we say interpolation, and then we escape the values. All right, then that's it. Then we export this. So when we export this from here, it should be available here, so that when we now start applying translations, it will already have been introduced into the app's lifecycle. Okay. So how do we get started? We simply begin by adding, you see, remember how we had hooks, like in our utility, we had hooks, we had like the section separated. It's the same case right here. So we have states, but I like having hooks at the very top. So we can just have hooks, and then we just say constant. Remember, it's translate that we are exposing from our use translation utility hook. Yeah, so this translate method is what we'll be using. Now remember that the whole flow is already set. So if we save this, then you see it fails because like we have introduced a hook. So all you need to do is to simply restart our npm run android again, and then it should work. So we just do this npm run android, and then it should work. And then we have this. So let's start by targeting this part right here. All we need to do is simply this. We say we can clear this. We do that, translate, then it accepts two things. You remember the key and the options. So for now, because dashboard is a constant, we just need to set the key. Okay, so we say home dot title. Okay, then we don't need to pass any object, okay, because it's optional. We can just pass an empty object. So we save this. Notice the change, it's changed to small d because it's if we look at our translation utility, let's actually have it side by side right here for easier reference. Let's increase this a bit and remove this here. So you see that it's small d. Okay, so if we change this to something else, maybe lorem dashboard, we save it. Notice that. So the question is this: what happens when we just pass home? Okay, because we said it's dot notation. So what happens when we just pass home? You see, key returned an object instead of a string. So because in React Native, like you cannot like render an object. Yeah, you can't just render an object as it is. You need to change it to a string. So that tells us that actually it works because it's going to pick home the object itself. So but we don't want the object, we just want the title part. So I hope that is clear. So we save that, we get this back. So let's do this once again. Now let's test the waters, and we say we want to change to maybe Arabic. So we change to AR, and you notice that it's actually translating, which is very interesting. Okay, that is good. So now how about the second part where we want to actually salute someone, like welcome so and so. Okay, so right here we just come to the second part. Let's move this down here, and we just say this is all that you are going to be translating. So let me know what you think before I write it. Let me know, like maybe in the comment section, what you think it will be. But for that reason, let me give you 2 seconds, and that is 1, 2. Okay, let me continue. So all you need to do is this again. So translate, then we need to pass in the salutation. So we say home dot salutation, but now we need to pass in the object. Okay, so the object will have a key. Remember our keys that we have them right here? The key is user. So you can just copy this user, then you pass in the value of the user key. Okay, all right, so we just say username is what we want to pass in, then we save this, and we see that's interesting. Because it's in RTL, it actually did it for us automatically. So those who understand RTL or those who understand Arabic, you can just let us know how this is pronounced. But long story short, it's still saluting Bits and Bytes TV in Arabic. Okay, all right, so let's change this maybe to Swahili right here, and then don't worry, we will add like clickable buttons in the next part 2 of this tutorial. So this is part 1, so make sure to stay tuned to the next part. Okay, so we say like here Swahili, we save it. So you see dashboardi, karibu tena, Bits and Bytes TV. And again, you recall when we said that the translations they are going to be the source of the UI appearance. This is how it's appearing. Notice that it's not capitalized in any way. It's not formatted in any way. What you provide is what you get. Okay, so you can decide. It's up to you. So we change this maybe back to English, and we see this. Okay, so that's it. We have actually closed the whole loop. We have added our translations. We have applied our translation hook, and we have actually used it in our UI. Okay. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this part 1 of using translations in your React Native application. So the next part, we will be now using actually clickable actions from the UI. And by clickable actions, what I mean is we can have them as a drop down. The way you see in other applications, you have a drop down, then you click on the drop down, then after clicking on the drop down, that language will be applied. So if you're interested in that part, let me know, and stay tuned to the next part, because hopefully I'll be posting it in the next maybe few days. So stay tuned, and always remember that anything that you learn anywhere, make sure that you teach a friend or two, so that you can be able to grow together with them. Don't just grow alone, grow with other people. Okay, all right, until the next one.